Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, colleagues, students, guests. I'm very pleased to be here today with you and very grateful to the organization for having me. I'm learning so much from the other presenters from different disciplines, spanning from medical science to physics to astronomy to psychology, to education, the great achievements that we can aim at to make humankind thrive in the earth and beyond. I will bring my own experience as a designer, advocating the idea that design can be a driver of change. And maybe we may start by asking ourselves what design is. By definition that comes from the Merriam-Webster dictionary, it's about the execution, the creation, the fashion of something according to a plan. But this definition applies also to art, as we have seen today also in previous talks. So, what exactly differentiates art and design? Art is perceptual, design is rational. Design means at providing solutions, while art aims at provoking emotions, thinking over aspects of our life. This can be true, but maybe at the same time we can say that art is not just about perception, and design is not just about function, right? There is more complexity. And in fact, the relationship between form and function in design has been debated for over a century of design achievements. If you see any work of art, we have seen it today, you may ask yourself how much is about creating a space or provoking emotions or asking people to interrogate themselves. In the debate of asking whether form and function are related with each other, there has been a period of time in which this form follows function has been kind of a dogma to which the pioneers of design have been were devoted to. The idea that there is not much more to achieve than just responding to human needs. And this is very well expressed in some designs where there is not much left to ornament, to decoration. Even a couch, as this one, can be seen just as a machine where the body can have a rest, but according to very simple principles of geometry, structure, in a way as a building works. That was not the only way of approaching design, and in fact, over the decades, others took other journeys. For instance, thinking that the function follows vision and visions follows reality. It's a statement of Friedrich Kiesler working around the 30s and the 40s of the 20th century. And this idea was expressed in some of his design achievements where, yes, these are seats, yes, these are meant to provide rest to the body, but if you look to them, they are mostly an experimentation on form, where curves wave up and wave down, and then continues endlessly to follow each other. And in the end, you cannot really say that the object has a start and has an end. These seats were created in the Bronx, in the United States, for only $7 each. Other ways to approaching design and the relationship between form and function were found lately with this idea of form looking into the world, which is particularly true if you look to some designs that were experimented in the 70s, where icons or symbols or objects of everyday life were transported into furniture in this case, and therefore functionalism, whatever was related to the main responses, was left behind. It is interesting because it is difficult to tell of some of these objects if they are mostly emotional or if they are functional. The function is very much hidden behind the emotions, and this is where art and design are kind of overlapping. The next generation of designers, and in particular one group of designers collective, the name was Memphis, in the 80s of the 20th century, started interrogating on the idea of form following function. And in fact, if you look to these experimentations, it is much more about having fun, contrasting materials, contrasting geometries. It was sort of a political statement that whatever happened before, including this dominance of function on form, was left behind. It was more about freeing design from the constraints that have characterized it like in the past. And this idea of the fun that defines the form and in a way also the function was also experimented by others more recently, where instead of questioning the traditional balance between the parts, was in fact our memories, our childhood that are brought into the scene. Most of us can find a mental and a visual connection with this kind of objects in which, yes, the function is still there. These are lamps, but you don't expect that the function of lighting is the dominant aspect. It's more about telling stories. It's about storytelling, in fact. And then there is another way of looking at this relationship, which is function follows form, or if you like, form dictates function. When the manifestation of the object mythical and aesthetical dimension take the lead. You may know this object, some of you may have used it, and you may have also experienced that it is most likely not the most high-performing juicer, right? But this is not very much about proper juicing. Probably a proper juicer would have the typical form of a juicer that we find in any kitchen store department. Here it's about having an outstanding object that declares itself, outstands, and also originates the use of it. So we can say that design, according to this example, can be a driver of stories, of storytelling, not only the element that responds to human needs. And therefore, we may ask ourselves where this story comes from, where designers find inspiration for their stories. We have some example, an old story of the wishbone. The wishbone is the central bone in the chest of chickens. And in the past, there was a population in Italy, the Etruscans, that considered birds as predicting the future oracles, so being able, birds, to predict the future. And therefore, they were using this wishbone. When they were slaughtering a a chicken, they were making it dry and keeping it as a sign of a good wish. Then this object became, over the centuries, the object used for making a game. In the game, two people are holding part of the bone, and before starting the game, they have to wish. They have to express a wish, and then the game starts. The winner is the one that, after the game, holds the bigger part of it, and is also the person that will have that wish succeeding. These forms can also be drivers for design solutions. And in fact, the Y, the letter, and the very same form that expresses itself in the wishbone, is a good geometry for creating connections, as you can see expressed in the wishbone table, where different steel parts are combined together in forming a dining table. You may know, although it has different forms in different countries and cultures, the crochet. Now, the crochet is a typical way of weaving that is used for creating tablecloths, but also garments. And I find it particularly fascinating. I think that everyone has some visual connection because of the geometry, the pattern, the relationship between the solids and the voids. And there are ways also to reconsider these forms in a more contemporary way, translating the fabric into metal rings, having the metal rings expressing the same sense of geometry and the possibility to see through, but it is no longer a decoration, it is not longer tableware, it is a proper structure itself. Then if we look to some of the most, the oldest, I would say, ways for architecture to express itself, as you can see here in the Greek temple, the remains of a Greek temple, there is something that has crossed the centuries, the idea of forces balancing each other. And in each of these architectures, we have a basement, a foundation, the shaft, which here are the columns, and then a crown, an element that complete this triadic composition of elements. And it is always possible to reinterpret these in different ways, also in furniture, where you have a combination of foundation, the base, the shaft, and the crown, although according to different materials, the proportions and the relationship may also change. How many forms do you think a water drop can take? Infinite, right? We cannot control them because water drop takes the form that the humidity, the temperature, the type of surface, how much grip it will find, how much opposition in its dropping it will find, defines the form. And therefore we are very much, I think, attracted by these fluid, free forms that we cannot really control unless we constrain them. And it is interesting also to experiment on these free forms, particularly when we work with transparent materials such as glass, because glass combined with these free forms can, in a way, celebrate the structure that is at the base of these compositions. Other elements that inspire us, the boxes. All of us, we have played with boxes when we were kids. Some of us even when they are adults, I would say. And boxes are so nice because are, the basics of our playful language. And assembling and also disassembling, because kids used to mount boxes and then destroy, because destroying is so nice, right? As well as constructing. There is also a second moment in which boxes come to our mind because we become travelers, because we move, because we spend our life in a city and then we move to another city, and boxes become even a way to transport things. And therefore, this multiple level of meanings of boxes come back to us and can even be part of storytelling in design. As well as changes, movement. Movement is so well embedded in our experience. Movement is in the cycle of life, in the cycle of seasons, in the movement of the planet. And then movement is part of our eye capturing. Everything that moves is more exciting than everything is standing still. But generally, most of our interiors are very static, and we don't change them much. So it may be interesting to try to interpret or give space to interiors to become more adaptable, more flexible to the user needs, and sometimes also furniture can offer solutions. Not only movement, but also different uses can be connected to the transformation of spaces. In some interiors, we don't have, particularly when they are small, we don't have the possibility to have a lounge chair, a bench, a couch, a sofa, because space is very costly, right? So sometimes we prefer to concentrate different uses in one single object, and this can be done by transforming a chaise longue, a lounge chair, to a bench or to a low table. There is also a new set of challenges that are standing up in front of us, because in the end, design more and more will be asked to provide solutions that deal with the big challenges of our time. We know, colleagues have presented before, the challenges of climate change and how the decarbonization agenda will help fighting against climate change. So design can be extremely powerful in providing solutions, and one of the ways is to shift to sustainability and the transition to the circular economy, where the traditional linear approach of sourcing materials, transforming them, making products, and then using and then disposing, the linear economy can be revisited in a more circular way, in which what it is a product today can be material for tomorrow. And there are different ways to address this new approach to design, including extending the life of products. How can we extend the life of products? And what's the purpose? The purpose is to reduce energy consumption and waste of materials. Many of you have kids. You always have been kids, and you know how much fast we grow and how important is to provide proper dresses to the different ages, but it is very wasteful, right? So this is a very, very smart design that accommodates kids in their growth without the need to constantly renovate their dressing. Concerning electronics, we are always challenged by new models, but we are also challenged by how fast our smartphones break or become obsolete, because they are falling down, because they crash, and we experience the need to make them repaired. Most of the time, okay, warranty, it's an official dealer, a lot of money to be spent, or we go for another channel and we spend less with non-official parts, spare parts, but this is also, not providing the right solution. So there are companies that are delivering solutions for easy disassembly smartphones that the user themselves can repair, transform, upgrade. Another way of approaching this problem is the shift from product to services, which is happening. All of us are already into it in car sharing. That doesn't force you to own a vehicle for transportation, but you can rent it, as well as for holidays. You don't need to have a home, a property. You can have holidays, of course, by accessing to Airbnb or the platform that are in between the final user and the service provider. But this can have an incredible impact on the goods that we are constantly surrounding ourselves of, because is it really needed that we possess a fridge, that we possess a television, that we possess an oven, that we possess an iron steamer, or can we also just purchase the service of ironing, the service of keeping the food fresh and cool? Maybe this will allow for having a better relationship with the companies that manufacture, that instead of selling products, they selling their services, reducing drastically the amount of energy that it is produced and creating a long-term trustful relationship between the users and the producers. And then finally, transforming the culture of waste. So we should no longer think that waste is something that exists. There is no waste. We should think beyond waste, because sooner or later we will discover that all the resources that were available in the planet are over. No? Nothing less to source. And therefore, at that point, we will finally realize that we have to mine not from the earth, but from what was already produced. And there are plenty of good examples of companies that are doing greatly. This is just one that tells you how many objects you can create over a number of plastic bottles and a number of plastic bottle caps for creating beautiful tiles that were exhibited here in the London Design Week. Therefore, designing out waste with a new regenerative mindset will allow designers to have a positive impact on society in its journey to the post-carbon era. Thank you very much.